Welcome back to another episode of Q&A with Q&A. And we're back with our second episode with our guest speaker, André Kritzinger. And today we're going to talk a bit more about investment properties.
Thanks, Quentin. It was interesting. After our first video, there were so many questions, more questions we didn't get to in the first video. So we'll take the opportunity now to talk about that. And the thing that came up a lot is what type of property one should buy when making an investment into property. Albert, in your experience, what type of property should someone for the first time would you recommend, specifically focusing on the type of property?
André, it's interesting, and thank you guys for all the questions. First things first, obviously we spoke about sectional scheme on the last video, and I know there was a lot of questions following up on that video. So I would say, look, there's a lot of factors to consider. It's very difficult. I mean, I always say when someone asks me is it a good thing to invest in property, I ask them is how long is a piece of string. I mean, I think that everyone's different. Your portfolio is different. So long story short, I would say when you're looking at a sectional scheme, rule of thumb, ground floor always a good investment. Okay. I mean, there's a big demand. It's very seldom that you get ground floors available, and if it comes across and if it's priced correctly, then obviously it sells quickly. Things to look out for, obviously, I mean, in a big demand is if there's a bit of a courtyard.
So because it's on the ground, there's more space for some. It's naturally more space for some.
Naturally more space. I mean, think about sitting in a first or a second floor apartment and there's no balcony.
What about the view?
Yes, the view is obviously, I always say, so it depends on where the scheme is built, of course. So normally your first, second, third and going up, I mean, obviously the view is a bit better.
It can be better from that side.
100%. So there is benefits. Each level has got a benefit to it.
Yes.
And it's each to its own as well. But rule of thumb, especially when looking in a sectional scheme, I think a big demand, especially for us in Northern Suburbs. In Cape Town, is it pet friendly? I mean, that's
something. A lot of questions came up about the pet friendly. There's so many tenants that want pets with them.
100%. So obviously, if you buy something, you can maybe pay a little bit more.
Okay.
And the chances of getting a tenant is very high.
So risk a little bit lower.
Risk is a little bit lower. Yeah. Also, depending if you want pets in your unit, of course. So there's a lot of factors to consider once again. But like I mentioned, if it's an enclosed courtyard, great investment. If you can maybe make like a little braai or something like that. Africa in Cape Town, South Africa. I mean, what more can I say? Summer's coming up, so.
But it's interesting. Another question that came up in the first video was open fires. We mentioned braais now. So if I understand correctly, there's some body corporates that don't like open fires at this first and second floor, but they do permit it. So if there's communal areas, they're responsible. But if I remember correctly, there's charcoal you can use, but not big open fires. Just help us a little bit more on that.
Correct, André. So that's one of the external factors that we mentioned the last time. Obviously, I know I'm referring a lot back to our previous videos, but obviously for the followers, look, obviously every body corporate is different, and rules and regulations change as we go on. So it's very important once again to get that body corporate rules before you purchase.
Check it out.
Even if the agent tell you it's pet friendly, you can buy whatever the case might be just to get the sale through. It's important to ask for that. You allow to ask for the body corporate rules. Rather go through that. Once again, even if you're still not sure, you can ask who's the body corporate, make contact with them. I will definitely recommend that rather than that before you purchase something and maybe you want to stay there yourself. We're talking about investment property. Maybe you want to stay there yourself.
Exactly, that's important for yourself as well.
Of course. So with regards to that, I think do your homework. I mean,
exactly.
It's simple as that, but sometimes you fall in love with the property and you buy with your heart and not your head. Unfortunately,
it happens so many times, and that's again why it's so important to team up with the right property practitioner. That came up so many times in the first video.
100%.
A second thing that also came up was buying new versus buying in the second-hand market. there's a difference between the original cost and when it comes to new development versus existing scheme. Just quickly, Albert, what is the biggest difference in a new development with transfer cost versus existing scheme and the transfer cost?
Okay, 100%. Okay, so with any property that you're buying for more than R1 million in South Africa, there's transfer duty applicable as well.
That's paid to SARS, right?
That's paid to SARS,
Yes.
yeah. So that's applicable to SARS. So if it's under R1 million, you don't pay transfer duty, but there's also a confusion that I've come to notice that
Yes.
when you're buying a property under R1 million, there's still transfer cost. The tenant still needs to get paid. Someone needs to transfer that property from the previous owner to the new, to the buyer, okay? So there's still transfer cost involved, there's still bond cost involved if you're taking out a bond, which 99% of the cases.
So a lot of people do still take bonds on that.
100%.
Okay.
Yes, 100%. So then that's for second-hand dwellings.
Yes.
For new properties, if you're buying directly from a developer,
Yes.
there's no normally look that can also differ from developer to
Yes.
developer. So there's no transfer cost, and a lot of the time, if they have a negotiation with the bank, there's no bond cost involved.
So that's sometimes included in the original purchase
into
price.
the purchase price,
Yes.
but that purely depends on the developer, and that's a very important question to ask the agent, because
Before.
a lot of the time, especially in new developments, the agents do not inform the buyers,
Yes.
a lot of first-time buyers, because you don't have that initial cost to fork out the cash that you need to pay. And then when it comes to transfer and registration, then
Now-
you're sitting with a bill. When you go and
Exactly.
sign by the attorneys, you're sitting with a bill and you don't know where it's coming from.
Exactly.
So
So
that's
the
very
bigger
important.
difference, I think, is to make sure about there's a cost that are included and are not included.
100% correct.
And
And
that's-
ask the questions.
Yes, people don't. So you buy it, like you said, emotionally, but it's so important to make sure you do ask those
Yeah,
questions.
100%. And then just another thing, Andre, with regards to levies, I know there was a lot of questions
Yes.
with regards to levies.
There was.
I think one of the questions that came up is plastered buildings versus
Face brick.
face brick
Yes.
buildings. So obviously that's going to affect your levy
Yeah.
as well, but again it depends on the body corporate.
How it's managed.
How well they're managed. I mean, you can look at new developments. Obviously, there's a bit of a guarantee. There's new features like aluminium
Yes.
windows,
It's less.
aluminium gutters,
yeah.
less maintenance,
Yes.
you know, all of those things. So that will obviously change if you buy in an older dwelling, in an older building where it's maybe wooden
Yes.
window frames, etc.
It cracks over time. It needs all of the
Of course.
varnish. I know what you mean. Yeah.
And a painted building, same
Yes.
story. I mean,
Yeah.
and then at the end of the day, you need to. Okay, so what I've come across with regards to, we spoke about aluminium windows.
Yes.
What I've come across, a lot of the body corporates says that they will go 50-50 with the owner. So if you
you go
do
from-
change,
You go over. I understand.
yes, do change from wood to aluminium or whatever the case might be, then they will cover 50% of the cost, because remember now, in a sectional scheme,
Yes.
the body corporate has got insurance on the outside of the building.
So only the outside of the building.
Only the outside.
Internally, you're responsible for that.
100% correct. So from the cavity of the wall to the inside,
Yes.
that's for your pocket. From the cavity to the outside is for the body corporate's pocket. Hence the reason why they go 50-50, but not all of them does.
I just wanted to say they've all got different standards. You need to check out and make 100% sure every time.
100% correct, Andre.
Interesting, because I've noticed that the recent buildings in the northern suburbs is more plastered, it's painted, it's aluminium windows, and I think it's important to strike that nice balance between, does someone actually want to live there? How nice is it? Is it actually, you just can't build every time on how practical everything is. I know there's cost always, but you gotta have a nice product. So I think it's also important to look at, would you also like to live here?
Yeah, of course, Andre, I think a very important thing, and I think something that it's also one of the questions that came up, is amenities. We shouldn't forget about the amenities.
True.
So, especially in the newest schemes, I must say it's quite nice if there's it's a lifestyle that you buy.
Exactly,
So,
you buy into a lifestyle.
buying into a lifestyle, so there's a gym, there's shops
true.
nearby, or maybe in the
Yes.
development, a swimming pool, dry area or dry facilities, entertainment facilities, if I can put it that way. What I've seen is a lot of the southern suburb type living spilled
Okay.
over to the northern suburbs now with your bachelor flats,
Yes.
smaller, your micro units, which is call it.
More popular.
But then you get the amenities normally in those complexes where there's a swimming pool, a bra entertainment area, etc. So you don't necessarily have to be in your little 28 square meter
Exactly.
apartment.
You just sleep there.
You just sleep there. It's a lock up and go. It's the modern lifestyle. It is what it is. So.
It's interesting because there was some questions about what COVID had the impact the last 18 months on the property in the northern suburbs, and we've realized you don't have to go to the office anymore. You can work from home. So the northern suburbs is a little bit more popular, it seems, and that's why you mean the southern suburbs trend sort of spilled over a little bit to the northern suburbs. You play, you work, you eat at the same place. It's a whole lifestyle thing.
100% correct. And then also what I've seen is that some of the developments even have a what do you call it, a space where, a communal space, where there's some office space as well, office and entertainment space, so that's quite nice as well.
You don't have to go anywhere, you just right there. It sounds a little bit scary, but it's true.
Yeah, 100% correct.
So,
obviously, I mean, with the new developments, we get the larger developments where there's a bit of freehold properties, bit of sectional scheme, and then it's mixed use. So there's a bit of retail and commercial space.
All in one space.
All in one area. So you literally don't have to leave your development.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We spoke a lot about levies in the first video. Those are all factors that influence levies. Yes, it's nice things to have.
Yes,
it's again the balance, and so important that you talk to the right property practitioner before you make any decision.
André, just touching on that, obviously you're paying the levy for a reason.
Yes.
In most cases. So what we've also seen now in the last, let's say, year or so, you touched on the southern suburbs spilling over to the northern suburbs, people working from home. Yes, there's also the people that doesn't need to live in CBD anymore.
Exactly.
And want to come and live in the northern suburbs, more value for money. When it comes to your freehold properties, a bit larger
more space available.
Yes, obviously for your young families,
yeah,
etc. So then you have to consider or keep in mind that any property, I mean, there's a cost, there's a maintenance cost.
It's always
involved.
cost.
So it's either going to be one of the two. You're going to either pay in a lock up and go, you're going to pay a levy, or you're going to have a larger property where you're going to have to pay maintenance.
That makes sense.
And I think people forget about the maintenance.
Yes.
And that's a very big factor that you should consider.
I think a property, a building like a block needs to be repaid every 5 to 7 years. You need to cater for that. You need to get a savings plan. So you're so true. There's always cost involved. Make sure the people are managing the cost on your behalf are the right people. Thanks guys. It was nice being here again with you.
Thanks,
100%. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next time on another episode of Q&A with Q&A.